is a live stream about. If you guys haven't read the title, it is about should Andy Muschietti still be uh, attached to direct Batman Brave and the Bold. Now, the reason I bring this up because with Welcome to Derry season 1, the last 3 episodes have premiered. The question has been about the CGI. That's been questioned from everything he has done, from Mama to Chapter 1, Chapter 2, to The Flash, and now to Welcome to Derry, episode 1 through 3. Now, it's been more exaggerated, or it's been more brought up, especially with last night's episode of Welcome to Derry. And yes, the last night's episode was pretty awful in terms of the CGI. Like, it is really, really, really not good. And like, I don't want to look. The first 2 I think were decently, and it worked to an advantage because of how far they were pushing it. But when they didn't put with the way they were doing with like the skeleton man and the cemetery scene, it just is really goofy, and like, it just doesn't work. It doesn't scare you. It doesn't. And look, I will be the first to admit I have defended Andy's choices. Like, look, let's talk about the Flash, because that was the first DC movie. Now, there was a choice he made with certain things, especially when Flash goes back in time in that bubble, and what all the characters look wonky, or a lot of people compare it to PS2. He did that on purpose, which I understand, because I think if you have to be realistic, and knowing the Warner Brothers at the time, I don't think they were going to spend the money to make all that look real, which would have been a lot, maybe, I don't know. But so I think Andy was trying to be creative with when the Flash goes through time. Everything else, like the baby stuff, I think a lot of people, the stuff on the bite, like, there's certain things just kind of look wonky. Even if you don't talk about the stuff where the Flash is going back in time and you're seeing through all the events he's been through. Part of that, I know one thing I listened to someone about. It has to do with also the lens flare, the lens that you, as a cinematographer, you use, and it doesn't work well with the way they were shooting the film. It was I believe it was a fisheye lens they were using for the Flash, and it makes it really, like, I need to go back and watch the video about how he was explaining it, but this was someone who had knowledge about lens and cameras, and how that ultimately does look for something like this. And it really, again, so it's not all the CGI effects fault. It's just more of how they, at least with the Flash, it was the cinematographer they chose and the lens flare they chose for that. And I have a feel like it's probably also a definitely flare, because James Gunn ended up using that same cinematographer for Guardians 3 and for Superman. Though, if you watch of the cinematography, I think the best cinematography of those 3 films was probably Guardians 3. Though the Flash isn't like, visually is still, there's good, the thing is, the Flash there's good things visually in the film. It's just the things that are very noticeable are because the certain lens they used, and the choice and again, the stylistic choice that Andy Muschietti decides to use through all of his films through CGI is hard to ignore. Like, even if you want to make the what I just put out about the lens flare and the fisheye for the Flash, you could say, okay, and he purposely did the CGI for the way they did for the Flash going through the time, that bubble thing. You can make that argument, but at the same time, we've seen Mama. I haven't seen it in a while, so I don't know if that would hold up today. Let me know if you guys have seen Mama recently. But I know chapter 1 and chapter 2 for it. I keep on calling the first it chapter 1, but it doesn't have chapter 1. But I guess you can call it chapter 1, chapter 2 for the it films. It is so noticeable, and it's not even with Pennywise particularly. It's more of the things that are with the fear stuff, like the painting, or in chapter 2 was the fear of, was it Paul Bunyan, and it's just, I mean, I don't know how that's even scary. Like how much they overuse the CGI to think that's going to be more effective. And I know because I think Andy has said because it's a um I forget what he said it was, like because of how what this world is, and it's such a big, I forget what it was, what the word is, but the choices he make, he does it for a specific, I'm sure I believe it's for a certain reason. So but the big question is, again, so with all that, should he be still connected to DCU Batman? um I think story wise and character stuff he is really good at. I really like him, and that's what's so disappointing to, like, and I think he knows the criticism with when it comes to the CGI, and it's either he ignores it, or he just, it's either he ignores it or he just doesn't care, which I guess you could say, well, ignoring it is just trying to not, or if he doesn't care, like, I mean, I would be more thinking, like, if he just wants to just doesn't care, I guess I give him a little bit, just where, like, he's like, look, I'm still gonna, I mean, but it's just like there's been enough criticism and enough talk, there's been enough talk about this to where this is something that for a lot of people it's going to bother them, because we don't know, with the Batman and Brave and the Bold, we don't know how much CGI they're going to use, like, realistically in that film. It depends on which storyline they use, because it's supposed, now apparently there's been changes with the script since it was first announced, so we don't know. But if you're going to be basing on like Son of Batman, which is kind of where it does deal with Deathstroke, but it also deals with Man-Bat. At least based on the animated Son of Batman, it deals with Man-Bat. So what's that going to look fantastic? It's a fantastical thing, and that's what I think. Welcome to Darius and the It films are fantastical, and that's why he wants to overuse CG a lot, because again, these are so fantastical stuff. But again, when you're doing these fantastical things, they need to still look real enough to where, like, especially when it's trying to scare you, want it to feel real. Like, look, and we complain about when they try to mix practical and CGI together, not just. But this feels like it's like, I think I was watching a review, and they think it's just all pretty much like there's no practical use. It's all CGI, and it's hard to, and it's just you just don't buy into it, and that's a big problem. And that's why horror fans have a huge thing about practical effects, because it looks more real and it feels more real. And absolutely, look, and I'm one of the defenders of like Nightmare on Elm Street remake, but the one biggest issue with that film particularly, or just the one big scene in that movie that's really off-putting, is the wall scene, because they did do that in 1984 with Wes Craven, and I think they used the wall thing. I think it was the moving the wall, or I forget how. I think they used the moving room or something like that. How they also did with the bedroom scene, with the Johnny Depp's blood scene. I believe that was the case. But again, when you do something practical, it looks really real, and it. But when you do something so overly CGI, the way that Welcome to Derry has done, especially episode 3. Look, the first two, I think the scene in the market was over the top and cheesy, but it still looked effective enough. It didn't look like what this episode 3 did. And according to someone I've talked to, or talking to someone I follow, and who have got early screeners of the first 5 episodes, it's not getting any better from this going forward, we're not. It's not getting better. At least for episode 4 and 5, we're not getting any better. And I don't know about the last 3 episodes of of the season. So this is so yeah so yeah. So the big question is Andy still like, look, what he did with the Batman stuff in the Flash? I think he did a really good job with the character stuff, and that's not the problem. So like, I have no problem with him still being attached as the director. The problem is who you bring in as your special effects team, your practical effects, your cinematographer. Like, um, I don't want them to. I don't want him to bring his Flash cinematographer in. Nothing against that guy because I think he did a good job with Guardians 3 as a cinematographer. And I don't know how I really feel about Superman cinematography because there's some like nice shots and there's some stuff that just look really too. It feels like too TV. With Superman, it didn't feel as cinematic to me for me. But I still liked it. I still liked Superman, but I have nitpicks about it. Um, but overall, like, I mean, I don't know on the top of my head who I want to direct if Andy's not attached. I know for us, I think we wanted to get going. At least for me, I do want the DCU Batman to get going because I know we've been waiting for Batman Part 2, and I would like to see, or I would like to see Batman get cast, and then eventually he gets teased at some point. I think really we want the Batman being cast. I think that's a big thing for people. I do think because we have we don't have Batman and Wonder Woman and Aquaman, Flash. So we have 4 of the characters we haven't, which I guess makes sense considering how how much we got of them recently. But still, but yeah, um, my thoughts. Would I still have Andy as the director? As of right now, I think I'll stay with him for right now, but because I have to assume it's not gonna be. Well, if it's gonna be more fantastical, then yeah, I'll just say this: I'm much more worried now than I was before. Because I think his character development and the story stuff are good, but the CGI he's got to come down from that. He needs like James Gunn needs to really go and talk to Andy and say, look, but then James really needs to be on about look, we need to get this right. Like, look, I think you've done a good job with the story and characters, but this is a complaint we've been getting about. This is the one constant thing everyone's talking about you, about your work, Andy. Is this is the CGI and the team you choose to do the CGI practical effects, the time that you guys are given. Now I know with the Flash that had 3 other directors before Andy came on board, so he might not have, and that was also during they were filming also during COVID, I think as well. So that's also another keep that in mind as well. But when it comes to chapter 1 and chapter 2 is like, okay, why did you have to overly do? Because there's so many things that will take you out of the horror stuff. Like, again, like I said, the painting, the Paul Bunyan things, I don't think are scary. I think the head spider, I think that was effective enough in the first film. So there's things that are scary, and I think the opening of the mouth, I think is cool and stuff like that. It's just more of the stuff that are not Pennywise. And then when we get to chapter 2 where he's half Pennywise, half spider, I think it's still better than the ending for the 90s miniseries. But I mean, that is still really a choice you make. But again, I've liked all of his stuff. Well, I think his weakest is probably chapter 2 because that movie just feels so. It's so like, there's a lot going. Like, it's 2 hours 49 minutes, and I think. I just don't think it was as effective as it wanted to be, and then you have a lot of CGI stuff that just is not effective. But yeah, so Andy Muschietti, what are your guys' thought of Andy Muschietti staying on as director for Batman Brave and the Bold? Are you guys for it? You guys against it? Are you guys still just still deciding? Because according to someone I talked to, Splattercasts, um, that it doesn't get any much better than what we've seen so far. So, yeah, this is really gonna be something because Andy said, I think even said that in a couple months we'll find out more about stuff. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know. I'm definitely much more mixed than I was before the Welcome to Derry. And again, this was always going to be the issue with Andy being attached to direct, is because the CGI stuff. And again, it's a team. They hire a team of people who work on the effects, but then I don't know what Andy sees with when he chooses to do the CGI, but yeah, I really hope it doesn't affect Batman Brave and the Bold, but if eventually, look, so I would like to see him stay at, like, I want to see him do the character and the character and story stuff, but ultimately, if they had to replace him at this point, I I think so. But I don't know. But that just I think at some point we're gonna probably. I think we'll hear at some point. I think after the series, I think we'll hear at some point about the direction for early. No, okay, yeah, scrap that. I think, yeah, in a few months we'll find out if he's actually really directing the film or not. From what he said in a couple months, yeah. So I think ultimately we'll find out in a couple months. But until then, it's like, so overall for me now, I'll say I think at this point I do kind of want to see someone else take over at this point. I don't trust his choice in the CGI, or at least what he wants using CGI. I think that is going to what. And again, I don't know how heavy CGI Brave and the Bold will be, but it can't look like what we're seeing from Welcome to Derry, or from what you do not want that criticism going forward. But yeah, I hope you guys did enjoy this live stream. I'm sorry it just came out of the blue, or well, not out of the blue, because I did a little short on it yesterday about the episode. I just really wanted to come on and really actually ask the question: should he still be the director? Hopefully, I gave my thoughts clearly, and maybe I was kind of all over the place, but I do think this was something I think people will be talking about, and it's going to be something everyone's going to be talking about, even if James Gunn is not talking about people. And this is not going to make a difference probably to James Gunn's mind, and I'm not wanting that. I don't want my thoughts to be ultimately his decision, but it just needs to be. I think it's going to be out there, and I just wanted to get. And honestly, I want to get my cents out there, but just honestly, it's something it should be talked about. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this. Thank you for checking it out, or if you check back out later. This is Let's Talk Horror Movies, signing off. Peace.